vagueness. These two issues come up quite a bit when you're dealing with statutes, right? You can't have a provision that is too overbroad, that is reaching and encompassing areas of speech that are protected. But on the flip side, if you are narrowly targeting particular types of viewpoint discrimination, that also presents a problem, following the logic of RAB and some other decisions of the court. So again, hopefully these cases provide a good starting point, and I look forward to the rest of the discussion. So thank you very much, and I look forward to it.
I'm just going to move right through as opposed to stopping for recognition and stuff. In the end, we'll thank everybody. But, Chief, you want to have a section to this?
Well, I think you read my notes. I'm going to say exactly like
there you go.
I agree with what all the case decisions are working with. And I think what I look at from my perspective, what is the role of law enforcement in these meetings? And from my perspective, it is not necessarily, I'm not necessarily concerned about the content of the speakers, their own content. And what am I going to focus on? Does it meet that criteria of disorderly conduct and criminal in nature? And so I know as we have other police chiefs here, some of the things that I'm always curious about is the person who's in control of that. Do they understand what the police chief's legal authority to take action in these meetings are? I will share with you that in one incident when we had a city council meeting, probably about 250 people that weren't happy. They were yelling, had signs, and I heard those words that police chiefs do not like to hear. Is, Chief, remove that person from the audience. And I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. And the person was right in the middle of the audience, and I thought, how am I going to get that person out of there, first of all? And so I did what, generally speaking, police chiefs don't admit that we do it. I just pretend I didn't hear it. and eventually it took care of itself. And so I think it's important that as people who are running these meetings understand that just because someone is saying something that we don't necessarily agree with, or we don't necessarily want to do, that it doesn't necessarily give us the legal authority to remove that person from those meetings. And I find that sometimes some of the people that are in charge of those meetings don't understand the restrictions that we have. We just don't have the legal authority to do that. And on a different matter, I just don't know that, from my belief, that the tactic of removing somebody within that meeting at the time that event takes place isn't a good strategy. I find that it, generally speaking, entices that individual who most meetings are televised, and what are they going to do? They're going to be on YouTube later on that evening as you see now police officers trying to remove this person out of a public meeting because they said something that the mayor, a city council member, or a police chief did not say. Nothing good can come from it. It just can't. So I truly find that it is best for, if it is that disruptive, for the only thing that bothers is our ego, and that is take a break. And allow us then to deal with that at the break setting, where we're able to have a better understanding of how we're going to remove that person, if we're going to remove that person, or are we just going to explain, hey, can you just act over? Generally speaking, your comments will be better if you're calm. So I just believe that in most cases that police intervention should be a last resort. We really just need to, generally speaking, discuss that with either the mayor or whoever is running that meeting prior to them asking us to remove somebody from the meeting. So they understand where we're at. I think, at least in Fullerton, one of the things that have been beneficial for us have had very, very disruptive meetings. And is that when available, we really, I think the most effective method of dealing with angry or hostile speakers is really to attempt to build a rapport or a trusting relationship with that person before they even come to that meeting to speak. So, for example, we had mass protests in front of our department for every Saturday for at least 8 to 10 months. And we knew that those same individuals were going to be coming to city council meetings as well, that were going to be pretty much explaining the same issues that they were talking about at the protest. And And so one of the tactics or strategies that we used was simply to try to engage with them and not necessarily try to change their perspective, because that was not going to win. We're not going to be able to tell them, oh, you got this all wrong. And so we didn't want to do that. But what we did do is say, hey, I don't necessarily agree with your viewpoint, but I understand it. And you certainly have a right to protest. You certainly have a right to express your opinion here. So let us help you do that. And we're just asking you to do it in a manner that you guys are safe and everybody else around is safe. So we started with putting barricades out so that we could block off 2 intersections so that they could freely move about without being fearful of cars hitting them, and even more so them coming up to cars and banging on the windows and those type of things. This started in the summertime. And so we brought out, we have an ice machine in our police department. So we began filling up their coolers up with ice.
Chilling them out.
Yeah, they tried to chill them out a little bit. Bringing out water to them, bringing out chairs to them. And the interesting part of this was, is though when I first went out to these protests and went by myself, I had all the young guys tell me, that guy getting himself killed out there. You know, that's stupid. But the reality is these are the same people that, after about a month, began coming to the city council meeting now and talking in support of the police department and talking about the support that the police department treated them with respect and dignity, and that we didn't tell them they were wrong. We just shared ideas. And so I think when you have groups that you know are going to come to city council meeting, even though you know that they don't necessarily like you, you still have to serve them. You still are obligated to meet those needs. And so I just found it was important for me to, before city council meetings, show up an hour or so beforehand, have discussions with them. Many times I've had the discussions outside of City Hall or in the foyer, and I found out that many times they just want to express their frustration, concerns. They wouldn't be heard. Now they were still going to come up and talk at the meeting, but when they did so now, they had already released so much of that energy and that anger that when they came up to speak, they actually did a much better job. They articulated themselves much better simply because they don't have the opportunity to release some of that energy. So one of my thoughts is that what we try to do is continue those relationships. So although there's not protests, I still get text messages, phone calls, emails from many of those people that are still in contact with me today, just to share, hey, this is what's going on in their life, and give them an understanding that we do care. We're there to serve them as well. So I think when that opportunity comes, if you can actually build those trusting relationships, not to be able to like each other. Sometimes they say very hateful things, but I just let them know, I'm not here to argue. At least I understand why you're angry. I don't necessarily agree with the conclusion, but I at least understand what you're saying. And so from that standpoint, I apologize. I get that. And I think that has done very well for us in really building that relationship.
Yeah. So as the ACLU attorney, I thought I was going to walk in and say, I'm going to tell you a lot of things that you might not disagree with. But now it seems we're all working on the same.
No, don't confuse the panel with the audience.
So I just want to thank Supervisor Nelson for putting this together. I think a lot of this stems around training. I think understanding this stuff is really important because, Supervisor Nelson's the chair now, but next year he won't be, and maybe he's going to understand it out of this, but next year someone new will be, and he or she might not understand it. Every year there's someone new running these meetings. So and these are tricky issues. So the more training we can get, and which we're happy to help support in a way, I think the better these results are going to turn out. I want to give you a quote from a case, a Supreme Court case from the Vietnam era. It's the Cohen versus California case, where it's sort of an infamous case where a gentleman walked into a courtroom wearing a jacket that said, fuck the jacket. Excuse my language, this is a free speech panel. We're just talking about the language. Get out of here. And the court said, very specifically, one of the prerogatives of American citizenship is the right to criticize public men and measures. And that means not only informed and responsible criticism, but the freedom to speak foolishly and without moderation. Now that probably sounds familiar to a lot of you, right? Most of you, I gather, are now public figures. You probably are public figures because as an individual, you want to help your community, but like it or not, to a lot of people that come to your meetings, you are the government. You are the person who holds some sway over their life, and you make decisions that affect their lives. And for some people, that affects them very personally and in many ways angrily, which I'm sure some of you have seen, which is why a lot of us are here. So what to do when they come and they spew their anger, so to speak. In California, as in most states, we have an open meetings law. The Brown Act sort of creates a situation where it makes clear that government bodies work for the people, not the other way around. And it creates a space for the people to come and speak to their government bodies. That's required by law. If you think of sort of the old town square where you have people standing literally up on their soapboxes and spouting their, whatever it is they think. You have some people that make a lot of sense and they have a crowd around them. You have some people that maybe are a little bit less sane than others. They maybe have one or two people around them. They're all up on their soapbox saying their thing. And what I think the Brown Act does is try to import some of that into the boardroom city council, not without limitation, as the supervisor said. There are certainly limitations because there are a lot of competing interests going on. You all have very important interests and right to move through the people's business in a sort of efficient and orderly way. There's no doubt about it. And the people certainly have a right to come and voice their opinion about what their local government is doing. And of course, there's sort of an overriding interest in safety above all. So where do we strike that balance? And time and again, as the professor noted, that balance is struck at the line of actual disruption. People can come in and speak and say within the jurisdiction, certainly, of what that board can do, speak on matters within that jurisdiction. And as long as they don't actually disrupt the meeting, then they tend to have a lot of leeway to go ahead and say what they want within the jurisdiction of the board. Actual disruption means actual disruption. That's actually another quote from the case. This sort of perception that disruption might happen isn't enough. You really have to have the person disrupt the orderly progress of the meeting. And so that's the line. Now, in the heat of the moment, I will concede to you that's a hard thing to assess sometimes. And I think the best practice is, for the most part, to stand back when you do. You're going to hear things that fall short of these fighting. When we talk about hate speech, the doctrine that comes to mind are these fighting words. Fighting words has evolved in a way that now means you're really trying to incite violence. You're inciting violence, and violence is imminently about to happen. At that point, speech can probably be restricted. But short of that, in most of these meetings, people have 3 minutes to talk. Every 2 weeks, they get a chance to go say what they want for 3 minutes. And part of your job, not every job is all, not enough people probably come and tell you you're doing a great job. But part of your job is to hear for 3 minutes every 2 weeks when that particular person who comes every 2 weeks to your meetings tells you over and over again what a horrible job you're doing. Part of your job is to hear that.
You're limited to 5 minutes.
So,
thanks for pointing that out.
there are certain restrictions that apply. Restrictions on what they call time, place, and manner restrictions. So you can limit time in a reasonable way to 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I'm a free speech guy. 5 minutes sounds great to me. I'll come and speak. I understand why sometimes that's more limited. And then there becomes an issue about what's reasonable, really. Right? At some point, you're cutting it too short. You're not letting someone really get their point across. But certainly some time limits are reasonable. place limits are reasonable. They don't let you just speak up whenever you want. They set aside public comments and you speak toward things that aren't maybe on the agenda at other points. So those things are limited. But what you can't do is restrict based on viewpoint or content. Your personal level of offense. Listen, I'm in a position where I represent people who I am personally, they say things that I personally couldn't. The RAV case is the co-op case, right? That's horrifying. As an individual, that is a horrifying thing. The idea that someone can put a burning cross in someone. People say things all the time that are offensive. But what comes out in the law is what is the government's job? Is it really the place of the government to sort out what's offensive and what's not? Because what exists is what's called the marketplace. In law school, we talk a lot about the marketplace of ideas, right? And free speech issues tend to get sorted out there. And the cases tend to say, listen, government, we might right now, in this day and age, agree with what was said today, but I don't know that 20 years from now it's still going to be offensive. Really, it's better to step back and let the marketplace of ideas sort it out. If someone today wants to spout hate, racially motivated hate in an open and public meeting, well, that person's going to have to suffer those consequences in that public meeting and in his public spaces and where he goes when he goes to get coffee and he runs across people that heard him say that, him or her say that. There's a marketplace of ideas that sort of deals with this speech that you or I may think lacks value. But as a government entity, we don't really get to say what lacks and doesn't lack value. So what to do? My advice would be to just stand back, let the people have their 3 minutes. When you start involving the police, you have sort of these alpha personalities dealing with alpha personalities, dealing with alpha personalities, and things get heavy. If you just let the 3 minutes go, and you don't allow a lot of credence to what was said by highlighting it, then that to me avoids a lot of the problems. If you must, you're all human, and sometimes you feel like you must respond. I understand that. Something was said that maybe degrades something you feel personal. Well, maybe there's some space where you all don't cede your free speech rights by being on board. Maybe there's some space as a city council member or a board member to come in later and say, as long as there's this caveat, you absolutely have the right to say what you did. I want to applaud Mr. Keaton, because the city of Anaheim did something just like this. Where, not to talk about a particular issue, but they said, we absolutely respect your right to say these things. Constitutional rights are important to us. But as individuals, we did not like what you had to say. You can sort of condemn morally without, as long as you don't give the impression that the person's not allowed to come back and say it again, because he or she is. And so there's a little bit of room there. I still would, it gets a little hairy, in a particular situation. But as long as you're very clear that the person has the right and wouldn't restrict that, that may be the only way to respond, in my opinion.
Rabbi, you want to?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me and this wonderful panel. I am not a lawyer, and I don't play a lawyer on television, so I want to talk about rights and responsibilities. And everybody in this country has the right to free speech. And of course, that comes with some responsibility as well in the highest form. And people sitting here tonight are people who are leaders by election or by appointment. And part of the reason people are elected is because we want to hear your opinion. Part of the reason people are appointed is because they're appointed to lead. And as interesting as I found the panelists sit back and do nothing when hate speech is in our governmental house, whether it be the library or the city council, can sometimes be unconscionable. And what I mean by that is not when somebody is talking about a particular issue, but I'm talking about real hate speech, when a religion or a race or sexual orientation is being challenged in a way that is offensive.